Hi, Gloria Donahue. We're going to be making fudge cake. It's actually from a new issue of Southern Living. And I looked at it and it looked good, and I made it and took it over and people loved it. It's kind of, it says fudge cake and it really reminds you sort of a brownie, but it's really good. It's a 1 bowl cake. It's going to be delicious. For this recipe, you're going to need 1 cup, or I have learned not everybody's American. I used to say sticks of butter. It's 2 sticks of butter, but that equals 8 ounces of butter. 4 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate, 1 3/4 cups of regular sugar, a dash of salt, 1 cup of flour, 4 eggs, 1 cup of chopped toasted pecans, and 1 teaspoon vanilla. Now, if you'll notice in that recipe, I said toasted pecans. So always look at a recipe before you start it to see, is there something I need to do before I start putting this together? And in this case, there is. You have to toast your nuts first. And I toasted them maybe at 325 or something for like 5 or 6 minutes. They just get a nice toasty smell to them, but you don't want to burn them, so be careful. So toast them, let them cool a little bit, and then chop them, and you'll be ready for the recipe. The first thing we're going to do is to melt the butter and the chocolate. Now, I had semi-sweet chocolate in bars. They also come in little pieces, but it's semi-sweet chocolate, 4 ounces, and it said put it into small pieces, and I did that in the processor. The butter, the 2 sticks of butter, is sweet butter. The other name is unsalted butter. And the reason, and I cut that into smaller pieces. I'm going to be putting these 2 things in the microwave. And so the purpose of having the chocolate in smaller pieces is so that it will melt as the butter melts. Because if the butter all melted and the chocolate still hadn't gotten to that point, the butter would get too hot. So when you do things in the microwave like this, you're trying to get things of a similar melting thing so that they'll melt together and blend. And I'm going to do this, and it only takes a minute or so, and it says stop like every 30 seconds and stir it. You do not want to overheat, but you do want the chocolate to melt. As you can see, our chocolate and butter have melted and they're still warm. I'm going to add the sugar, and that's 1 3/4 cups of regular sugar. Now, the funny thing is with white sugar, if there's lumps, they'll come out. It's brown sugar that's the problem. Now, it says to let this rest for 10 minutes after I do this. Remember, when you look at a recipe, there's always a reason for something. You may not understand what it is, but someone put those instructions there for a reason. I'm sure the reason for this is similar to a brownie that I make, and that is this mixture is very warm. They don't want the eggs to go in such a warm mixture, so they want it to cool off a little bit. Sometimes I hurry this up a little bit by putting some water in the sink and stirring it, bringing that temperature down so that everything is still liquid, but it's not as hot as it is right now out of the microwave. Well, we now have our chocolate and our butter and our sugar mixture, and we're going to add our eggs. And you know my rule for eggs, it's always add 1 at a time into a little bowl before I do it into the main bowl. I think I'm going to break that up a little bit. But I need 4, and these are large eggs, just regular large eggs. And I do it into the cup because I've never gone a year without getting a piece of shell in my eggs. And it's much easier to dig out if you break it into the larger bowl. And it's not like I'm doing 100 eggs, so how much more time can it take to do this? For those of you who follow me and are interested, I haven't been making videos for a while. And some of you know it was because my husband was ill, wasn't eating, we've had a really terrible year. I'm not sure why, but he's doing a lot better. His appetite is back, he feels stronger, and it's so hard to cook when nobody is interested in what you're making to eat. So it really took all the fun out of cooking for me. So now I'm back, and I hope things are good in your life too. And now we're just going to I'll put the whisk in here because whisks are really good for something like this. Now, this was a 9-inch pan. And the instructions call for spraying it with Pam, which I should have mentioned. That's the spray for, for a cake pan. and then putting parchment paper in, and putting parchment paper high enough that you're going to be able to use that as handles to lift the cake out, because it's going to be a very soft cake. It's going to be a square cake, obviously, in the 9-inch pan. And one of the things I really like about square cakes is that you can, or rectangular in a 13 by 9, is that you can cut them into smaller pieces. And they're especially good if you're going to have other desserts and people want to have a choice and they can try a little bit. If it's a great big 3-layer cake, they're only going to try one thing because that's such a big endeavor to take. But with the little date squares or brownies or cakes like this, you can try different things, and that's what I like. We're going to put in 1 cup of regular flour. I don't sift my flour, but I do lift it in the canister to aerate it a little bit, and you never pack flour. You just do it lightly and trim it off the top. I'm going to put that in, and a dash of salt, really just, there it is. Now this will take a few minutes to get all this incorporated. I don't know when you're watching this. I could be dead and buried. My grandchildren could be on canes by the time you see it because YouTube lasts forever. But I'm actually filming it in October of 2017. And 2 weeks ago, I turned 80 years old. Is this a joke or what? Believe me, it will creep up on you much faster than you think. And you'll find, you know what? I'm still myself. And so it's not such a bad thing. So enjoy people who are older. Believe me, they can share things with you. Technology might be different. But what was your first job was like, or what was your fun thing to do when you were a kid? And there are all kinds of things that you can share that you'll find that the feelings are pretty much the same, whether they're 90 or 20. So here we go. The flour is incorporated. I'll be done with my ya. As somebody just wrote a thing on a comment, said, "Oh my God, would you please shut up?" The chances are so slim. I'm going to tell her, please don't watch another video or you'll have a heart attack. And I need my teaspoon here. There we go. A teaspoon of vanilla. Vanilla is always good. And then a cup of the chopped toasted pecans is also going to go in there. And as you can see, this is a very, very runny batter. It really is. But I made it last week and took it to a cancer treatment center where people come to Philadelphia to be treated for cancer. And this is a place for them to live while they're being treated. And so I made this and took it, and it got very favorable reviews. So that's always good. We always love to have our efforts appreciated or enjoyed. Maybe not appreciated is the wrong word, but certainly enjoyed. There we go. That was for something else, okay. So I'm going to, and you really do pour, it said pour it into the pan, and you do because it's a very thin batter. Let me get these out of the way. I'm going to use my handy Now this is baked at an unusual temperature for cake. It's baked at 300. Without thinking, I'm sure you'd put it into a 350 because that's the most normal temperature for all cakes. This is baked at a very low temperature, 300 degrees, folks. 45 to 50 minutes, although I think maybe I let it cook a little longer next time. You're always going to test it with a toothpick or something, thin and sharp to go down that no wet comes off it because that means it's done and there should be a slight pressure back. Our cake tasted done. I tested it with a bent paper clip. That's what I use if I can't find my cake tester. And it came out clean. As you can see, it has a shiny top. And it sat for a half an hour in the pan on the rack. And now I'm going to take it out of the pan and sit it on the rack for another half hour. That's going to be a full hour of cooling. This is a very soft cake. You want to be careful with it because even when you go to cut it, you're going to find that it really does have that soft, fudgy quality. But we'll see you after it is fully cooled. I'm going to pull it out. This is why you have the slightly larger handles on the cake. And as you can see, that cake is sort of bending as I move it. It is very soft, and that's fine. So it will cool another half hour. Well, our chocolate fudge cake has cooled. First it cooled in the pan on the rack. Then I took it out of the pan and just put it on the rack. And as you can see, the paper comes away from it very easily. That's certainly not a problem. So we let it sit another half hour. You can see it has a glazed texture to it on the top. And I forgot to tell you, you finish it off with 10x sugar, confectioner's sugar. And we're just going to sprinkle that over the top. And then we're going to cut it in squares. I think maybe we'll have it with ice cream, but it would be lovely on its own. It would be lovely packed for a lunch or in any other way that you would like it. I thank you so much for coming to the kitchen. It's been a joy to see you again. Bye-bye.